Hey guys, so I decided to do my video today on canning and preserving. So there are several different methods that you can use, but mostly what it depends on is the pH of the food that you're canning. So the canning for anything that's 4.6 or lower would be either water canning or steam canning, and foods that are 4.6 or higher is then pressure canning. And really, the only thing that changes during the process of all of these is just what you actually use to can the food in. So, the things that you need to can food, you'll need, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing the water canning, the steam canning, or the pressure canning, all of those things change. But if you're doing a water canning, you're just going to use, you can use just like a large pot, just like this, and you're going to fill it 2/3 of the way. And then once you fill that with water, you'll put a wire rack in there so that the jars have something to sit on because they can't sit directly on the bottom of the pot. And the other two things that you can use, whether it be for the steam canning or the pressure canning, they actually have um, like a little shelf already built in where you put the cans on top of that. So you'll need something to cook everything in, and then also you need jars. So these aren't jars that are actually for canning, but they were just mason jars that I had. So you can use something like this, which is probably about, I don't know, maybe like a 6 ouncer. And then you could also use, something bigger, depending on how much you're really trying to can. Um, and but like I said, you would probably want to use the ones that are specifically made for canning. And if you're cooking the food for longer than 10 minutes, you don't really need to worry about sterilizing any of the jars. But if it's something that's going to cook for less than 10 minutes, then you probably should start out by sterilizing your jars. And it's always good also to sterilize the tools that you're going to use for canning. So you would need those things. And then with the lids for the regular canning jars, they usually have the bottom lid part and then the part that screws around. So the top part would stay in place, and that part that screws around the outside comes off once you're done with the canning. So you'll need that. You also need, I don't have it, but it's a tool that they use to actually take out the jars from whatever method you're doing without hurting yourself. I mean, you could probably maybe use tongs depending on how big or small what you're using, but I think you probably should get the tool that they're talking about. I just didn't have anything like that on hand. And then of course they said, it's good to either have a funnel that you can use to put on top of your jars so that you can keep everything from going all over the jar, or you could use something like this and you could just use that to pour in your contents. And then also you need something to help the air bubbles escape. So they say you can either use a spatula, or there's also a tool that they make specifically for that. I just didn't have any of the canning tools, so I just improvised with the stuff that I had around the house. So those are some of the things that you'll need. So in order to get the the water bath going, you have obviously just put it on the stove and get that boiling. And once you have that boiling, you're going to start filling your jars with whatever it is that you are jarring, whether it's vegetables, fruits. Like I said, it just really depends on what you're trying to do. If it's anything over 4.6, it's got to be done with the pressure cooker. So you'll do that. You pour the stuff into the jar. You're going to want to take the jar and kind of tap it on the table to get all the air bubbles to come out. And then once you get the air bubbles to come up, you just go ahead and either use this, or you can use the tool that they have and kind of just push the contents down and the rest of the air bubbles will escape. You want to make sure when you do that if you have room, you actually fill the jar back up, because you don't want too much space in between there when you put those into whatever hot method you're going to use. And then, of course, once you get everything in, what they do recommend is that you use some sort of either a towel or a paper towel soaked with vinegar, and you're going to want to just wipe off the top of the lid really good. That way, when you do go to seal the jar, there's nothing in the way of it to prevent it from really, really sealing and keeping everything safe and fresh in the jar. So once you get everything in your jar and you've got your water boiling and you're ready to go, you just take your jars and you set them in whatever method you're doing. And each recipe has a different time, just really depends on what you want to preserve. And yeah, so you get the water boiling, put the jars in there. You'll bring the water back up to a royal boil. And then once you get that going, you just check the time, set your timer. And when they're done, you take them off the heat, let them cool for 5 minutes, and that's going to allow the pressure of the lid to really set well with all the different jars that you have in there. And then you can, after the 5 minutes, take them out. You're going to take them out with that tool I was telling you. I don't have anything like that, but the safety tool to make sure that you don't burn yourself, or also too, you don't want to crack the jars because they're super duper hot, so you don't want to put too much pressure on them. So that tool really is a necessity if you're going to can. And then once you get them out, you put them on a towel. You just let them sit for 24 hours. And they recommend you don't touch them. Don't try to even like just see if like they're sealed or whatever. Just like leave them for the 24 hours. And then after the 24 hours, you can take the on the lids. With that piece that screws around it, just take that piece off, and you'll see if the top lid starts moving around a little bit, then it's probably not sealed perfectly. So you're going to want to refrigerate that and eat that. Don't store it, because if you try to store it, it probably would not be safe to do. And then once you have all of the lids properly sealed, and you can put them in a cool, dry place, and they're usually good for a couple years. Like I said, it depends on what you're doing. Each recipe is different, and it depends on the pH of your food. So it's important also too, while you're doing this, to use pH strips to check exactly what the pH is of your food. If it's something that's over the 4.6, but you want to use a water bath or a steam bath method, you can still do that, but you'll have to either add like a citrus or a vinegar or something to the recipe to drive that acid level down, because you can't use the steaming or the water bath for anything that's too alkaline. It's got to be acidic. So that is, it was wonderful learning about it. I haven't actually put any of this in motion. Like I said, I don't have any of the stuff, but after reading the book, it was really, really interesting and something that I want to try for sure. So it was a great skill to learn. Thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great summer. Take care.